There is a version of power that doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't grip you by the collar and force you to comply. It simply arranges reality in a particular way. And you walk into it willingly, often gratefully, with no idea that you were ever guided at all. This is the most dangerous kind of power. And the most effective. Today we are going deep into two of the most studied, most feared, and most misunderstood books on human influence ever written. Robert Cialdini's Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, and Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. What I found inside these pages will change how you see every interaction you have ever had. Here is what they discovered, and here is what you can use. Let me start with something that sounds like it has nothing to do with you. Let me tell you about a stuffed polecat. A polecat is a predator, a natural enemy of the turkey. But researchers discovered something wild. If you placed a recorded cheep sound inside a stuffed polecat, the mother turkey would try to protect it. She would nurture it. She would treat a natural predator like her own offspring. Because that one single sound, that one trigger, bypassed everything else. Cialdini calls this the click-whir response. The right trigger clicks in, and behavior whirs out, automatically, without reflection, without thought. Here is where it gets uncomfortable. Humans have the exact same wiring. In one study, people waiting in line to use a photocopier were asked if someone could cut ahead. Simple request. About 60% said yes. But when the request was followed by any reason at all, even a completely meaningless reason like, because I need to make some copies, compliance jumped to 93%. The word because triggered something automatic in their brains. Not logic, not reason, a reflex. A deeply wired tendency to defer when something resembling reasoning is present. The lesson is this. You don't have to be right to be obeyed. You just have to seem like you have a reason. This is the foundation of everything we are going to talk about today. Not force, not argument, not pressure. The right trigger, placed in the right moment. Now let's talk about something even more unsettling. A $1 soda. What if I told you that buying someone a single Coke could make them twice as likely to do whatever you ask next? That is not a hypothetical. That is a real experiment. A man named Joe was planted inside a research study on compliance. During a short break, he bought a stranger a Coca-Cola, small, unsolicited. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just said, I got one for myself, so I grabbed one for you too. Later, Joe asked that same stranger to buy raffle tickets from him. The people who received the Coke bought twice as many tickets as those who hadn't. And here is the part that should stop you cold. It didn't matter whether they liked Joe, whether they found him irritating, odd, completely off-putting. It didn't matter at all. The debt was the debt, and the debt got paid. Cialdini watched this play out at scale with the Hare Krishna Society in the 1970s. Their members had a severe public image problem. Most Americans found them strange, unapproachable. Donations were low. Then they changed one thing. Before asking for money, they started handing strangers a small gift, a flower, a book, something unexpected and unsolicited. Donations exploded. Not because people suddenly liked the Krishnas, because reciprocity overrode personal preference entirely. People who genuinely did not want to give these people money gave them money anyway, because the Krishnas had given first. Greene reinforces this from the other side. The most powerful person in any exchange is the one who gave last. Give first. Give unexpectedly. Give without making the expectation obvious. You are not buying compliance. You are planting it. The harvest always comes. But reciprocity is only the beginning. Because there is a second mechanism, quieter and even more reliable, that locks people in long after the initial gift is forgotten. Once someone says yes to something small, they will bend reality to justify saying yes to something much bigger. This is Cialdini's principle of commitment and consistency. And once you understand it, you will never unsee it. Here's a real story from his research. A salesman approaches a woman on a busy city street. He compliments her, then asks a small favor. Help him win a contest by giving him a kiss on the cheek. She complies. Against her own judgment, she later admits. But she does it. He follows the kiss immediately with a pitch for a magazine subscription. She buys it. Why? Because in the moment she kissed him, she made a quiet decision about who she was. She became someone who helps this man, and people do not like to contradict their own identity. The kiss was not just a kiss. It was a commitment. The commitment needed a story. The story needed behavior that matched it. She was not just buying magazines. She was defending the version of herself she had just revealed. The practical takeaway is precise. Start small. Always start small. Don't ask for the big yes first. Get a small yes, a tiny one, then slightly larger, then larger still. You are not just gaining agreement. You are inviting them to define themselves as someone who agrees with you. And once people have defined themselves that way, they will fight to stay consistent with that definition. Greene frames it this way. The most powerful relationships are those where the other party has already chosen to be on your side. You don't need to persuade such a person. You only need to remind them of the person they decided to be. Now we need to talk about one of the most disturbing experiments ever run on human beings, because it reveals something about obedience that most people are not ready to accept about themselves. In 1974, Stanley Milgram recruited ordinary people, completely unremarkable cross-sections of American society, and instructed them to deliver electric shocks to strangers. A man in a white lab coat gave the instructions. The shocks escalated with every wrong answer. The strangers screamed, they begged, they pleaded for it to stop. Roughly 2/3 of the participants kept going, all the way to what they believed was 450 volts, simply because the authority figure told them to continue. The strangers were actors. There were no real shocks, but the compliance was completely and utterly real. Milgram's conclusion was stark. What drove people to obey was not sadism, not stupidity. It was a deep, embedded, almost instinctual deference to authority. Specifically, to the signals of authority, the lab coat, the clipboard, the institutional setting. None of these things granted actual power. They merely signified it. And in the presence of those signals, ordinary people surrendered their judgment almost completely. Cialdini documents how deep this goes. Studies show that the same person is perceived as physically taller when introduced as a professor than as a student. A man in a suit jaywalking attracts more followers than the same man in casual clothes doing the exact same thing. The behavior to cultivate. Wear the uniform of authority in your domain, whatever that uniform is. Speak the language of expertise with fluency. Establish your credentials early, not boastfully, but as natural context. Let the environment carry the message for you. People are actively searching for permission to trust you. The symbols of authority hand it to them without a word being spoken. Greene takes this further into the long game. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. Build yours with intention and patience, and people will begin to submit before you have even entered the room. Now here is something that will sound wrong at first. Being unpredictable makes people more compliant, not less. The mind hates chaos. When someone's behavior becomes genuinely impossible to read, we don't shrug and move on. We become preoccupied. We loop. We run the interaction back again, trying to find the pattern, because prediction is how we feel safe. In the absence of predictability, we feel exposed, uncertain, vulnerable, and exposed people are manageable people. Greene describes the Duke of Milan, Filippo Maria Visconti, who used this as a deliberate system of governance. He would shower a courtier with attention and favor. Then, at the exact moment of expectation, withdrawal, coldness, complete disdain, no explanation. The courtier, desperate to understand what had changed, would change himself, reshaping his behavior, his presentation, his entire approach, trying to earn back what he had lost. And the secret Greene uncovers about how to survive someone like this is devastating. Stop trying to guess what he wants. Stop injecting your own preferences. Just surrender to his will and wait. That is what the Duke produced. Voluntary surrender, through confusion alone. Bobby Fischer used this against Boris Spassky in the 1972 World Chess Championship. He deliberately scrambled his own patterns, made blunders that violated every convention, forfeited a game for seemingly no reason. Spassky had prepared for a known opponent. He found himself preparing for nothing. He could not stabilize his strategy because he could not read his enemy. And he slowly dissolved. Vary your pace, your warmth, your availability. Don't be cold, because coldness is its own predictability. Be genuinely unpredictable. Let people sit occasionally with the feeling that they do not yet fully have your measure. The people who want to please you will work harder to do so. The people who want to control you will lose the thread entirely. And now, we arrive at the most important idea in everything we have covered today. Every person, Greene writes, has a weakness. A gap in the castle wall. Usually it is an insecurity, an uncontrollable emotion, a hidden need, a hunger carried their whole lives and never fully admitted, even to themselves. Once found, it is a thumbscrew you can turn. But here is what most people miss. Submission is not a response to force. It is a response to fit. To the precise feeling that someone sees what you actually need and has it. Give a person what they privately crave, and they will orient themselves toward you the way a compass orients toward north, automatically, gratefully, without quite understanding why. Cialdini found this in the principles of social proof and liking. We comply with those who seem like us. We give loyalty to those who make us feel seen. We submit to those the crowd is already validating. These are not rational calculations. They are ancient emotional needs fulfilling themselves. To belong, to matter, to be understood by at least one other person on earth. Greene's approach to finding this gap is methodical and patient. Pay close attention to what people cannot stop talking about. That is a map to their hunger. Find the childhood lack that drives the adult hunger. Watch what someone defends too vigorously, because defensiveness almost always marks a wound. Look for the contrast between the public face and the private one. The man who performs toughness relentlessly is usually guarding something fragile underneath. The person who insists they need nothing often needs everything, and then fill the void. Not cynically, not as a transaction, but with genuine attentiveness. Because the deepest form of influence, the kind that creates not just compliance but lasting loyalty, is not the gift that obligates. It is not the authority that intimidates. It is the far rarer and far more powerful gift of being genuinely, fully known. There is one final principle, and it sits quietly beneath everything else we have covered. Boldness works. Not aggression, not dominance, not force. Boldness. The willingness to act with certainty when everyone around you is hedging. To ask for the bigger thing when others ask for the smaller. To signal through your entire bearing that you believe completely and without apology that you deserve exactly what you are requesting. Cialdini ties this to scarcity. We want what is rare, what is limited, what others are competing to access. A bold person signals through their very existence that they are such a thing. A limited resource. Someone whose time and attention and approval is not endlessly available to anyone who asks. This creates desire, and desire creates deference. Columbus, when pitching his voyage to the Spanish court, made what by any measure was an almost insane demand. He asked to be granted the title of Grand Admiral of the Ocean. They gave it to him, along with the ships, along with the funding. He set his price impossibly high, and they paid it without flinching. The timid ask for what they think they can get. The bold ask for what they actually want, and they do not apologize for the asking. The world is full of people waiting to be told what to do. They are waiting for someone certain enough to tell them. So what do these two books tell us, together, when you hold everything we have covered side by side? They tell us that submission has nothing to do with weakness, and everything to do with design. People do not submit to force. Force creates resistance, resentment, the low, quiet rumble of future revolt. You may win the moment with force, but you always lose the longer game. People submit to the fulfillment of invisible needs, needs they may not even be aware of carrying, the need to repay a debt they feel, the need to stay consistent with who they have told themselves they are, the need to follow what the crowd is already validating, the need to defer to the signals of authority, the need to have someone read the unspoken room of their interior life and respond with understanding. Understand these needs and you understand the quiet levers of human behavior. Pull them with care, with patience, with genuine confidence, and you will never need to raise your voice again. The most powerful people in any room are rarely the most obvious ones. They are not the loudest. They are not the most aggressive. They are the ones who have learned to make compliance feel like freedom, who have studied the invisible architecture of human psychology and built their entire presence inside it, quietly, precisely, and with devastating, lasting effect. That is the subtle art of making people submit to you, not through force, through understanding. If this video shifted something in how you see the world, then you already understand what most people never will. They are inside these dynamics every single day, and they cannot see the levers being pulled. You can now. These principles compound. The more you study them, the more you see them everywhere. In boardrooms, in friendships, in every negotiation you have ever been part of, and every one you didn't even realize was happening to you. So here is what I want from you right now. Subscribe, because this channel exists for exactly this kind of deep, uncomfortable, genuinely useful knowledge, and there is a lot more coming. Like this video, if something in it hit differently than you expected, and drop a comment below with this one question. Which of these 6 behaviors do you think is the most dangerous? The debt that gets planted with a gift? The commitment that locks people into their own identity? The authority illusion that bypasses logic entirely? I want to know where your mind went. And if you know someone who needs to see this, send it to them. Because the people who understand these mechanisms are also the ones who can protect themselves from being used by them. I will see you in the next one.